The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mythos have many known villainous duos. Bebop and Rocksteady, Toka and Razar, Wingnut and Screwloose, and more. Well, back in 1991, a brand new pair debuted in the form of action figures, video games, and in the Fred Wolf cartoon. Sadly, after a few years of appearances, the characters remained in limbo for almost 30 years. Well, technically. So today, let's dive into the world of Groundchuck and Dirtbag. Yup, those are really their names. The mutated bull and mole were created by Michael Dooney for the toy line in 1991. The same year, they debuted in the cartoon and video games. More specifically, in the Manhattan Project. Dirtbag also appeared alone in the handheld video game Shredder's Last Stand, and in the Game Boy game Radical Rescue. Fun fact, all of these games were also known as Tmnt 3. More recently, the two characters returned to video games in 2022 with the release of Shredder's Revenge. According to his action figure bio, Groundchuck was a weapons expert working for the Shredder. He was born in Barbecue Ranch and weighs 500 pounds. Uncooked. On the other hand, Dirtbag was Splinter's arch enemy and a mix between a coal miner and a mole man. Like in all other versions, he stands out for being a tunneler. He came equipped with a jackhammer and a 4-pointed pick to make his point 4 times. As you can tell, the two characters were supposed to stand on their own, even in their initial video game appearances. It wasn't until they debuted in the cartoon that they became a duo. The two characters were adapted to the screen by David Wise for the 5th season in 1991. Aside from their look, it seems like David ignored almost everything that was already established. This version of Groundchuck had a laser hidden in his cybernetic horn, and Dirtbag sometimes used a drill and a shovel. However, he didn't always need them, as he could dig with his bare hands. They debuted simultaneously as other Michael Dooney creation from the same wave, Chrome Dome. Having to include so many elements in this double-sized story led to some scenes being cut out. This may explain some of the unpredictable elements in the episode.
Well, now that we've gotten all the exposition out of the way, what do we do next?
Their first appearance was in Planet of the Turtleoids, written by David Wise. This was a special episode of the show, as it ran as an hour-long primetime special on August 31st, 1991. It even had a special end credits version of the outro song. Groundchuck was voiced in his 2 appearances by Bob Ridgely, and Dirtbag by Pat Fraley. In the hour-long special, the 2 actors also played Herman, a dragon with 2 heads. The episode started with an existential question from Donatello. Would it have been better for them if they stayed as simple turtles? Well, the result would have been a more predictable life. At least they wouldn't have had to hide in the sewers. But this crisis was interrupted by the sudden attack of Tattoo, a sumo wrestler who was actually a mutated hamster. Yes, this is that kind of episode. Tattoo was just another attempt from Shredder to get new mutants so they could get into a museum to get a giant ruby that could heat up the ice around the Technodrome in the Arctic and free it. This plan will be put aside in a few minutes, because they were now more interested in creating new mutants. The gang went to a zoo, where Shredder tasked Bebop and Rocksteady to get him the 2 most vicious animals. And just in case, Shredder explicitly asked for a lion and a gorilla. Surprisingly, they got them right. But while they were at it, they remembered this was the zoo they came from. And I know what you're thinking, Bebop and Rocksteady were humans. Well, back then, even the writer who came up with their backstory couldn't get that straight. So let's pretend that they were animals first for the sake of this script. To celebrate how far they've come, they decided to release some animals, including a bull and a mole. While this was happening, Kerma, a turtleoid from the planet Shell-Rila, was trying to talk to some Earthlings. Assuming their shackles didn't allow them to talk, he freed the lion and the gorilla. After he was ignored, he left the zoo. Immediately after, the bull and the mole stopped right below the mutagenic machine and incidentally turned it on.
That's not a coincidence.
They turned into Groundchuck and Dirtbag, which kind of disappointed Shredder. Still, since he was already kind of resigned, he casually found some clothes for them that he had for the lion and the gorilla, like a cybernetic horn, a belt buckle with a bull on it, and a mining hat.
That's not a coincidence.
When asked what they wanted to be named, Dirtbag mentioned that the other moles called him Dirtbag. Either no one had the heart to explain to him why, or they really thought it was the right name for him. Groundchuck, on the other hand, simply said that he called himself Groundchuck, probably because David Wise was running out of time for character development, or to explain why Groundchuck suddenly had a cybernetic horn implant. In any case, Shredder couldn't tame them, and the two mutants escaped. At Channel 6, the Turtles were investigating the sighting of Kerma, who Vernon confused with one of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, imagine someone going around ripping off our style.
We better check this out. It might be copyright infringement.
When the Turtles came out of the building, they casually ran into Groundchuck and Dirtbag. They started fighting until Kerma, who was also casually there and got tired of not being able to communicate with any Earthlings, decided to kidnap them all. Also, incidentally, Bebop and Rocksteady were there, looking for the other two mutants, and all they found was April O'Neil, whom they kidnapped. When they arrived at the Technodrome, they showed their master that the Turtles were no longer answering calls, and the Shredder assumed Groundchuck and Dirtbag had eliminated them. Shredder then proceeded to create the fourth toy commercial of the episode by assembling Chrome Dome to lead the rest of the Footbots into building a mini Technodrome in the city. On the planet Shell-Rala, Kerma explained to the Turtles that this city was inhabited by Turtleoids, and all the buildings were made of gold because the reflection of the gold light provided them with energy, just like food. To make gold, they had a machine that turned lead into gold. Groundchuck and Dirtbag took advantage of the confusion and dug their way out. Donatello was amazed. He was just wondering about living like a simple turtle and not being an outcast of society, and here was a planet where everyone was a turtle, where they could live in peace. Kerma was taking the Turtles to the council when they received the attack of Herman the Horrible, a two-headed dragon. But his attack was contained thanks to the dome around the city. Unfortunately, the crystal powering this dome was running out of juice, and soon the city would be at the mercy of this dragon. This was why they needed help from the Earthlings, to move the entire population of Turtleoids to Earth. The Turtles tried to lie their way out of that, but two councilmen, Bork and Dwork, accused them of lying and put them in jail. The Turtles escaped without making much of an effort, and discovered that the Turtleoids had no weapons, as they were a peace-loving race. This is why they were so unfit to fight the dragon. Donatello stayed with Kerma to investigate how things worked there, while the other Turtles left the city to find and sabotage Herman's weapons. Meanwhile, Herman found Groundchuck and Dirtbag and made an alliance with them. The duo then convinced the Turtleoids to open the dome for them, offering them a piece of the crystal they needed to keep it powered. Of course, the crystal was just a big chunk of rock salt. Donatello discovered that the Turtleoids had a pulverizer he could weaponize. And while he was still fantasizing about moving there, he soon realized that being a fugitive, Donnie still had to use a disguise, just like he had to do on Earth. The other Turtles managed to sabotage the weapons. Then they saw Herman fail to use them, even though he already sent Groundchuck and Dirtbag. I'm not entirely sure what he was thinking of. Groundchuck and Dirtbag took the dome down a little later, and then had a rematch against the Turtles. But this time, it didn't go well for them. Raphael took down Dirtbag, while Mikey defeated Groundchuck. Unfortunately, without a dome, Herman was able to get into the city, looking for the gold machine. Leonardo quickly figured out that the dragon was actually a machine. So after taking it down, they found out that the mysterious figures behind the creature were none other than Bork and Dwork, the two Turtleoids that tried to put the Turtles in jail. When asked why, they simply said they were tired of only using gold for energy. They wanted things made of gold. Even though everything in this city was pretty much made of gold. It was time to return home, and the Turtles started wondering if Donatello would return with them or stay. Donnie then said that this planet wasn't for him, as it didn't have television or even pizza. Upon their return to Earth, they discovered the new mini Technodrome about to squash April. They rescued her and then destroyed the machine. With the help of April, who knew Chrome Dome's weakest point, they defeated the new character. After everything was resolved, Kerma left the planet.
The end? Question mark? What, couldn't they make up their minds?
Turns out this wasn't the end for our mutated duo. While Kerma appeared one more time without them, the three characters made a final appearance during the 7th season episode Escape from the Planet of the Turtleoids, also written by David Wise. It all started incidentally one day when the Turtles were thinking about Kerma and how having so much gold could put the Turtleoids in danger. So they decided to go to Channel 6 and try to contact him. Meanwhile, at the Technodrome, the villains were running low on power, so Krang devised a plan to use a specific building in New York as a solar panel just in time for a solar storm. All they needed to do was extend a power cable from the Arctic Ocean to New York, and to keep the Turtles out of the way, he would send a few killer drones to take them down. The Turtles arrived at Channel 6, but quickly got frustrated to know they couldn't use the machines immediately to contact Kerma. Incidentally, Kerma landed in front of the building.
Don't you hate it when buildings drop in unannounced?
Kerma, who sometimes has problems explaining things without taking people to his planet, asks the Turtles for help and takes them to Shell-Rala. At that moment, the drones came in searching for the Turtles, but after failing to find them in the city, they went back to the Arctic and told Krang that the Turtles no longer existed. On Shell-Rala, Kerma explained that he created turtle robots to defend the city, but because he was a pacifist, he didn't know how to make them aggressive. Instead of stopping things right there to warn Kerma that gold was a very soft metal that should never be used for defense, Donnie decided to work on making them more aggressive. The Turtles then asked Kerma about Groundchuck and Dirtbag, to which he answered that they had never heard from them again since they escaped in a spaceship. Incidentally, that was the moment a spaceship landed in front of them. It was the mutated duo, plus Captain Dread, a cyborg space pirate. The trio came looking for the gold machine, but after a short fight, Dread took Kerma hostage and left with the ship. These villains were so effective that Kerma got tired of all the torture and decided to free himself and steal the ship to return to his city. Upon Kerma's return, the trio returned with some henchmen. Donnie sent the improved robots, but they were quickly destroyed, because they were made of gold. Furious about the destruction of his robots, Kerma took down all the henchmen himself, forcing them to escape from the planet. With only the trio left to fight, Raph fooled Groundchuck and broke his horns, while Donnie and Mikey took down Dirtbag. Lastly, Donnie hacked Dread's cybernetic body until it broke itself apart. Groundchuck and Dirtbag remained prisoners in Shell-Rala, while Kerma and the Turtles returned to Earth, where they spotted Krang's power cable and blew it apart. And just in case you were wondering, the turtle-killing drones were never used again. This version of Groundchuck and Dirtbag was recently used in the Saturday Morning Adventures series, although in that case, it was just as part of a video game. And at the moment of this writing, they are still to make a story around them. They were also made into cartoon-accurate action figures by NECA, and this particular Dirtbag can be posed coming out from the floor. Finally, given that Groundchuck is literally a Red Bull, Groundchuck is the brand of an energy drink in the 2012 spin-off universe of TMNT Amazing Adventures. Jokes aside, David Wise was probably pressured to put as many action figures in that Planet of the Turtleoids episode as possible, given its primetime slot. This may have forced him to make the script goofier than usual, which generally works in the context of a comedy series. But if comedy isn't your favorite take on these characters, then you should take a look at the IDW version of Groundchuck and Dirtbag, which I'll cover in a future video. So what do you think about this mutated duo? How do they rank for you compared to Bebop and Rocksteady and against Tokka and Rahzar? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.
That's not a coincidence.